I'm so sorry. And I completely relate and understand. My mother didn't use words so much to make me feel smaller or to take things away from me. She would actually use actions more times than not. Although, you know, the smirk in the face was a pretty good disapproval in and of itself, right? So anything that I was good at, my mother naturally went after because that's easy and low hanging fruit. So when I was a little girl, I played different musical instruments, flute being the primary one and the one that I love the most. I had dreams of going to Juilliard. I was like, from the time I was 11, I think is when that dream started, when I became aware of the school. Anyway, my stepfather dies. That's a whole nother story. And she married somebody else 4 months later, and we're moving to New York, part-time at least, and I'm going to go to boarding school. Definitely not unhappy about that, as that means that I'm not going to have to live with my mother. Awesome. It also means I'm going to have to go through an interview process, which my mother drives me out for. So the first school was Hun Academy in Princeton, New Jersey. And the second choice school was Cheshire Academy in Connecticut. Hun, guess what? Drum roll, had a music program. Cheshire Academy, guess what? Did not. Which one do you think I ended up at? Let me tell you why, though. Let me tell you, like, how incredibly nasty and horrific cruel beyond belief, cruel my mother is. I'm trying not to get hit by a car. Boy, wouldn't that make her happy. Anyway, so my mother takes me to the interview. Obviously, I have no confidence. Obviously, I'm a really insecure child. I am sitting in front of a bunch of grown-up people behind a table, and they're asking me different questions, and I couldn't tell you what I said, what I didn't say. I couldn't tell you anything at all. I just, sat there and I guess I answered questions. I mean, I must have spoken. And by the way, you can't get the interview if your test scores, you have to test into these schools. They have to be good enough. Your grades have to be good enough. So even to get to the interview process, you have to be a good student. But I was a horrible child, but apparently I was a good student. Anyway, my mother's waiting. I don't know if she's in the car or in the outer room. I do know that when I leave that room, we go right into the car. We're in the car together. She didn't talk to anybody. None of the administrators or the people who interviewed me, none of them interacted with her. I remember that really specifically. And I remember the look on her face. It was that smirk, the smirk. And I was like, oh, because when you see the smirk, I mean, at this point, I'm 12, I'm well trained. I know what that means. It's coming. Get in the car. She goes, well, whatever words she used, but basically I bombed it. I didn't get in. Motorcycle. And it's my fault. And too bad, so sad. I'm going to have to go to Cheshire Academy because that's the way it is. No music program, no Juilliard for me. Yeah. Fast forward-ish. I'm now 17 and a half years old. At 13, I ended up running away from home because after going to boarding school, my mother tried to take away my peace and I couldn't go back into the abuse because now I had contrast. Now I knew what it was like to live in an environment where nobody was hurting me every day. So she did a whole thing, and I'll tell that story in another video. And I knew that I wasn't going back. And then I ended up at my grandfather's house, the CSA house. And so at the end of the day, I ran away from home. 17 years old, I'm on a plane with my stepfather because social services sent me back home, no questions asked. I had my little baby girl, and they pressured me into going back into the home of my abusers. And on the plane with my stepfather, I was on the plane alone with him. He mentioned, it was a good thing you ran away when you did because finances were really tight. And he said even just having you at Cheshire instead of Hun was much more affordable. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, that's why we picked Cheshire. That's why we picked Cheshire Academy. Yeah. But hey, but she's your mother. Oh my God, don't get me started. Or do. And for anyone else who's interested in why I say it that way, well, I have a podcast and it's called But She's Your Mother. If you want to check it out, the link is in the bio. Yeah, so there's that.